Driving is something that we all enjoy, and here in America, it is seen as a rite of passage. We equate driving to freedom, travel, and exploration. It connects us to the places we want to go, to the things we want to do, to the people we want to see, and most importantly, to the person we want to be. Driving is more than just a mundane activity. It provides us with opportunities and choices in our everyday life. But there are times when an injury or illness can interrupt the skills we need for driving, which leaves us worried about those skills and our safety. There are all types of injuries or illness, like a stroke, or a person experiencing peripheral neuropathy, or losing the use of an arm or a leg, that might stop us in our tracks. But I'm here to tell you that all is not lost. There are options out there, and there is hope. There are people who can help. My name is Susie Touchinsky, and I'm an occupational therapist and certified driver rehabilitation specialist. It's my job to look at what's possible, to think about what occupies your time, and to consider how driving supports you doing what you want to do. It's my job to look for solutions, not to take the keys away or to restrict, but to balance safety and independence, to look for options, opportunities, and hope. Some might say we are the world's best kept secret. What are driving rehab specialists? Why don't I know about you? I hear that a lot. I mean, who knew that somebody like me existed? But I'm telling you, we are out there and we are ready to help. So who is a driver rehabilitation specialist? Well, I'm a medical professional. I'm actually an occupational therapist, and I've pursued advanced training in driver rehabilitation. It's my job to understand your injury or illness and to help consider solutions or options for making it safer for you to move around your community. The first step in the process is to meet with your certified driver rehabilitation specialist for initial evaluation. Now, in my private practice, this evaluation is completed in the comfort of your own home. I will come out to you, sit down with you, and start by taking a look at the different skills you use for driving. I'll test your vision, make sure you meet the state requirements for that, and then take a look at your strength, how you coordinate your movements, and your reaction time. We'll also take a look at sensation. And then I want to do a couple activities with you to understand how you're thinking and how you learn so that I understand you and how to structure our time together. While we're working together, I start to think about the different equipment solutions that might be needed to increase your safety. Then, after that, step 2 is to start introducing you to those different types of equipment. Let's say you're somebody who's experiencing an injury or illness that's impacting your right leg. Maybe you've had a stroke that's impacted the right side of your body. Maybe you have peripheral neuropathy that's impacting the sensation down into the foot. Maybe you've had an amputation on that side or an injury to that right leg. If you're somebody who doesn't have the use of the right leg, we might explore something like this. This is a left foot accelerator. If you're somebody who's experiencing an impact on both legs, the right and the left, or we're talking about a condition that might ultimately impact both legs, we could explore something like this. This is a hand control. There's all different types of steering devices as well. So if you're somebody who could only use one arm for steering, either the right arm or the left arm, we would explore different steering devices that might help you. We also use our time together to consider what might be needed to make it easier to get into and out of your vehicle. For some clients, we explore things like a ramp or a remote control ramp, where you'll hit a button and the door will open on your vehicle, and then a ramp will come down, allowing you to ride up into the vehicle. We might also explore things like your transfer seat for the driver's seat. Here, this client has a 6-way transfer seat that uses a remote control to bring the seat back so that she can easily boost from her wheelchair into the driver's seat. She then uses the remote to bring herself up into the driving position. Together, we also think about things like where you will store your mobility device. How will you get it into the car? And once it's into the car, how do you get yourself into the car? Once we consider all of these different factors, step 3 is to start your training process. I like to meet with my clients to try the different equipment, and then once they find the right fit, we begin training. In most states, the training process will be used to help the driver become proficient and confident with the adaptive equipment, while also preparing the driver to pass the medical driver's test. Many states provide special permission to drivers on their driver's license to use adaptive equipment. This special permission or code means that the driver is okay to use the prescribed adaptive equipment. As each state is different, my advice to you is not to worry about the state licensing process. This is something that your skilled driver rehabilitation specialist will know and will be able to help you work through. But just know that this is a step in the process. After you've done your evaluation, we've picked out your equipment, you've done your training, you've passed and updated your driver's license, step 4 is for us to provide you with an adaptive equipment prescription. This prescription includes the specific equipment that you like and have you learned to use. This prescription is provided to the vendor of your choice, and the specialist helps to coordinate your installation into your vehicle. Your local driver rehabilitation specialist will be well versed in the vendor options in your area for installing equipment and help you through this process. The last step is for us to meet with you to complete what's called a final fitting. During the final fitting, we come to you, take a look at how you're doing using your own adaptive equipment in your own vehicle, and you'll take us for a drive. This is one of my favorite steps in the process. I love working with my clients and seeing them achieve their independence in their own vehicle with their own adaptive equipment. The OT Driver Rehabilitation Specialist is a resource available to you around the country. If you need somebody in Pennsylvania or New Jersey, I'm your gal and happy to help. But we are located all over the United States. We are a friendly group focused on safety and function, and we're ready to help. You can find us by visiting websites like the American Occupational Therapy Association or AOTA.org, or the Association for Driver Rehabilitation Specialists, ADID.net. Let's take a moment now and go through some commonly asked questions. So many times, if there's been an injury or an illness and someone's wondering if they can be safe to drive again, they'll ask me, where do I start? My recommendation is that you start by talking to your doctor about your readiness. Once the doctor feels like you've achieved, you've maximized your recovery, you've maximized your regain of any loss, that's when we connect with the driving rehab specialist. My recommendation is to connect with the driving specialist and start by having a conversation. It will be your specialist's job to kind of screen you, make sure that you're ready and a good fit for the program. All right, the next question I commonly get is, how do I know if I've got the right specialist for me? So in the world of driving rehab, there are different specialists with different backgrounds, but you want to ask that specialist, what their background is, what type of equipment they have. You want to explain to them what your condition is so that they can help to understand what it is that you need and anticipate what you're going to end up using to drive. So for example, in my practice, clients need to be able to transfer into a vehicle. Here's a picture of Dave on this slide, and he's sitting in his power chair. He's sitting in front of his Dodge van that he ultimately had modified with a remote ramp and remote door opening and a transfer seat. But to work with me, Dave needed to be able to transfer into my driving rehab vehicle, and he was able to do this with the sliding board. That's something that's important for us to understand when we work together is, will you be able to get into the driving rehab specialist vehicle to complete your training? You also want to have an understanding of kind of things like the expenses around driving rehab. the wait time, how long the driving specialist wait list is, and their experience with working with your state licensing administration. Now, the next most common question I get is, if my vehicle is modified, can my family still drive it? And the answer is absolutely. So in most cases, if we're talking about low-tech solutions, and low-tech solutions include the things that I've shown you today, so hand controls, a left foot accelerator, with those different pieces of equipment, there is a way to turn them off or to remove a pedal block so that the car can be driven using what's called the original equipment, the OEM equipment. It's important that when you're trained to use adaptive equipment, that only you use that equipment. And so if you were going to take your car in for an oil change, or have a valet drive it, or have another family member drive your vehicle, you would want to turn off that adaptive equipment or disengage it so that your family could drive using the original OEM equipment of the vehicle. I'll say the final question I tend to get is, how long is the process? And the process can really vary based on the state that you live in. So for example, here in Pennsylvania, the adaptive equipment process, working with a driving specialist, as well as working through the state to get your license updated, and then working with the vendor to have the equipment installed in your car and the final fitting, that may take a couple of months, anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks. And that's going to vary based on your state. And keep in mind, while it might take 4 to 8 weeks for this whole process, there is a lot of wait time in between. So for example, when I see somebody, we start with the evaluation. From there, I can kind of gauge how much training somebody's going to need, and then initiate the PennDOT relicensing process based on that. When we're waiting on our state licensing administration, there's a little bit of a pause. And so I usually pause the training, and then once we hear back from them, start up the training again so that you are working efficiently with your training and having that completed close to when you're taking your driver's test. But I guess in a nutshell, while it's kind of a 2-month process and you should plan on that, it might only include 4 or 5 training sessions with the driving specialist. And that comes to another great question, how much training will I need? So the training is definitely based on each individual. People who have experience driving heavy machinery or a lot of different vehicles tend to pick up adaptive equipment training very quickly. But while you can pick it up quickly, our job as driving rehab specialists is to still make sure that you have the confidence and the skill to efficiently use that equipment no matter what your environment is. So I'll tell you, typically I tell people it can take anywhere from about 3 to 8 hours of training. And I like to work with people if they're able to tolerate it for about a 2-hour training session, so that we can get them ready at a time, in 2-hour chunks. What I found is if you can tolerate 1.5 hours to 2 hours of training, that your training time tends to be cut down overall. So just a few things to consider, but when you talk to the driving specialist, they will tell you that it is individualized, to each person, and that we tend to make that decision about training after we've done the initial evaluation, so that we can guide that decision for you. It's been my great pleasure to communicate and talk with you guys today. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Email is always a great way to reach me. My email is Susie, S-U-S-I-E, @adaptivemobility.com. I'm a driver rehabilitation specialist in the Pennsylvania and New Jersey area. But if you live outside this area and need help finding someone, please don't hesitate to reach out. It's my goal to help drivers connect with the resources that they need. Have a really great day and take care.